The fake news, disinformation ramp up in the world is real. We are in a battle. It is a communications war, and we're in the midst of it. One has to recognize that. But the big question to me is, why is it happening? I think it's actually that we've come so far in this global transition away from fossil fuels that is getting so serious that it's becoming a real threat to the incumbents, that we're actually, to put it simple, on a winning path. And we know from every transition historically that once you are at the early days, nobody's complaining about anything. But it's when it starts getting serious about slave abolition, about women's voting rights, about acid rain, about the Montreal Protocol. It's when it gets serious, when vested interests are really threatened, that is when it starts getting really serious. We all know that the scientific evidence on climate risks is getting overwhelming. It's really sinking in that we have a planetary stability at hand. We also know that the scalable solutions outcompete the incumbents even without the science and the policies. And we know that the outcomes gives us a more attractive future. This is the moment to ramp up, because this is when it really is serious. We're in the final round of the transition phase. But there is one piece of evidence to close which supports this, which is that when you look at the Yale School, Tony Lizerovic's opinion polls, when you look at Europe, when we look at the latest opinion polls on G20, there's been barely no change in citizens' concern about human-caused climate change. There's very little change in the trust on science, but there's an enormous noise and inability of politicians to handle the misinformation that seems to give this impression of a mismatch. And I would argue that there is a maturity among citizens, but a mismatch among leaders. I think we really need to have a counterforce here and take this very seriously, but also have confidence that we're actually on the right path.